Hi friends, welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge, and today we're taking a look at this. This is the basic part of the Blitz sharpening system by TSPROF. I've reviewed TSPROF sharpening systems before, their K02 specifically, and I've got like 6 or 7 videos of that. This is their new Blitz system, and it is tiny. It's designed for convenience of space and mobility, storage, all of those things. And it comes in at a fairly decent price, in my opinion. So if you're looking for a new sharpening system and you want a guided sharpening system, which I very, very highly recommend, some of you people are hand sharpeners, and that's great. If you can be a good hand sharpener, that's awesome. I can't do that. I used to be able to do that, but with arthritis and things, I just can't be precise enough to do that anymore. And for those of you who don't yet sharpen knives, you're just new to the hobby and stuff. Yes, hand sharpening is a very good way to go. It's not necessarily cheaper because you're going to want to get higher and higher end stones. Well, same thing's true with guided systems. And it doesn't take up less space necessarily either, but there's a very good feeling you get from doing a very good job of hand sharpening a knife. I don't discount that at all. That's awesome. But I get a really good feeling of using a guided system to get a really good result as well. So this is good for the new person, the novice to knife collecting. And of course, if you collect knives, you want to sharpen them. And it's very good for the person who needs something small and precise. That's what the TSPROF Blitz is. The Blitz comes as the base Blitz or the Blitz 360. And I'll talk about why I like the 360 better and all those other details in the review. This is not a how-to video. There's videos on TSPROF website for that. But if their videos don't explain clearly, how to use something, you can ask me and I'll probably make another video. Like I made like 6 or 7 videos of the K03 system, and I'll probably end up making a bunch for this as well. I got mine directly from Russia. There are stores in the United States. Gritomatic is the one I really like. Gritomatic even sells on Amazon. And I just heard from one of the guys at TSPROF, Amazon Canada, Amazon.ca, in the near future will be having these systems as well. It saves you all those import costs. But if you're in the United States, they'll have their warehouse in the US, or you can buy it from the US right now. Internationally, you can buy them as well, and they keep on expanding where these are available. So without any further ado, this will be a good long review. Maybe grab yourself a snack or something and a nice drink, and then let's watch the review of the Blitz coming to you right now. This is the system that I got, almost the way I got it. I got the Blitz Standard, and right at the very beginning, I want to say I don't recommend the Blitz. I really highly recommend the Blitz 360. If you just can't afford the Blitz 360, then I very highly recommend that you get the Blitz and you add on, let me get this out of the way, this little piece right here. That is the little magnet in here. This is the place where you can use an angle finder to get the angle that you need to grind your knife at. Why do I recommend that so highly? Well, if you've been watching my channel for any length of time in 2020, you will realize that knife manufacturers don't sharpen their knives to a good angle. The ones that do are rare. Most knives, when they're sharpened, the angle on one side is 3, 5, 10 degrees different than the angle on the other side. Yes, it does happen. And it happens almost always. It is very rare to have a knife where the angle on one side is within 2 degrees of the angle on the other side. That's rare on this channel. Now, if you're usually buying custom knives, or if you're buying knives that are in the hundreds of dollars, that might be different. But this channel is largely a budget channel, and 99% of the knives that I review have a major angle change. There's a link down below where you can go see the records that I've kept, at least recent records in 2020, of what angle knives are sharpened to. And if all you can do is match an angle, which how to match an angle is written in the manual that comes with the Blitz. It's very simple and straightforward, and you use a marker any permanent marker, and it's easy to do. But if you just match an angle that's bad, how good off are you? You're just making the knife continue with a bad angle. Yeah, you can get it sharp, sure, but it's not a good, consistent angle. On most EDC knives like this, with budget kind of steels, 20 degrees per side is good. And you might have one side that's 15 degrees and one side that's 25. So when you go and set this up, and you set it all up according to the instructions for one side, when you then go and flip the knife over, if you just start sharpening, you're going to find that that's very different, especially the first time you sharpen a knife. That's why it's very important, I think, to get this plate. And then what you can do is use a digital angle finder, and you just put it on there and you zero it out. And then what you do is you then go and put it up here, and you'll know the difference between that angle. The angle will show up there, and then you adjust it to whatever angle you want. And once it's the angle you want, you just stop adjusting any of the dials. And when you flip the knife over, the other side will be identical. So that's a really good thing. So I would highly recommend getting that plate at least. Now, I got some other parts as well added on to basically turn it into a Blitz 360. I bought this feature, which goes on here to hold the rod, and it's adjustable to much higher than the original rod. So if I turn this around, that's where the original is. This one can be, up to here. So a much wider range of angles that you can choose, which is a very good thing. Another thing that I did was I bought different stone holders. That's this clamping system right here. These stone holders can hold different types of stones more. And they've got a little bit of give in them side to side on both parts, so that it's a little easier to get it all set up, and you can hold a stone that maybe wasn't made properly so that it will hold consistently straight across. And you can hold more types of stones. You can hold narrow stones securely. This can hold narrow stones too, but that other part can do it securely. You can hold short but thick stones more securely with this part, because it comes in there and it has two small contact points, which means the pressure is greater on those spots, which means it holds more firmly. Whereas this one's just got a flat side. And so if the amount of pressure is spread over a greater area, then the pressure per square millimeter or per square inch is less, which means it has less holding power. So this is better for holding stones that are flat on the sides. Now, as an aside, depending on what version you buy, there's the Blitz and the Blitz 360, and each one of those two has a base version, a standard version, and a complete version. And on a store like Gritomatic, he also has a special black edition version, which has different components with it and stuff. But so I'd highly recommend these different clamp ends. I'd highly recommend this to have greater range of angles. And I super highly recommend this magnet part. And I bought something else as well. With the base unit or the standard unit, it comes with this, which means I can be sharpening away. But if I sharpen too far, I can do that, which means I'll go over the edge, and then this corner will scratch the main bevel of my knife. Of course, that's a tiny knife. And I've got a number of knives. When I first got my first sharpening system, a guided system like that, and I got the bevel all scratched up on those knives until I learned that you can buy stoppers, which you put onto here. And so it changes how far you can pull the knife. So let's say you can only go, well, you have to put two of them on so that you won't go past the blade. So you adjust it, and then you won't go farther than that. And you have a second one, so you won't go further that way as well. Now you can get these, and they just have little rubber O-rings to absorb the shock of hitting both ends. The other benefit of that is when you're sharpening, you can use the entire stone more easily. like if I don't have any guide on here for how far I can do the stroke, I end up doing short little strokes, and then I don't use 2/3 of the stone. I just use the 1/3 in the middle here, and then I don't use those ends. But if you have those stoppers, it's easier to use the full length of the stone. You can sharpen more quickly, more efficiently, and you don't waste part of your stone that you don't use up. Especially if you've got standard stones instead of these diamond ones, you'll end up dishing out the middle quite deeply, and then you can never use the rest of the stone. So the 360 is what I recommend, but even the base unit and the 360, what do you get on here? Well, you get a number of things. You've got these clamps. They're the same on both. I just spoke with TSPROF today, emailed. They're working on a clamp and a system for sharpening convex knives, just like they did with their K02 and the K03. They've got a system where they've got rods and clamps. They've got like 4 different types of clamps on the K0 series of knives. I suspect in the future they'll probably have different clamps for here other than the convex ones. In the convex rod or a straight rod, a lot of different features. The Blitz is doing so super well. I can only imagine that they'll also be working on the clamps. Now these clamps are very good. They hold a knife very well. I even have, where's my other bigger knife that I had an example? Here's one. Here's the Schrade SCHF 31. That's almost a 5-inch knife. And it's well over 1/8 of an inch thick. This holds it just fine, no problem at all. And you can sharpen with it easily. I can sharpen this knife, no problem with this system. And I can sharpen something little with this system as well. It just is a very good clamp. At first, when I saw how small this clamp was, I'm going, ooh, that's probably not going to do a good job. But I was wrong. It does a very good job, very good clamping capacity and strength. And I've had zero problems with it. And, to prepare for this, I've sharpened 25 knives with this unit. That's my standard to play with the system until I get very familiar with it. So these clamps are okay. And you can do different positions for clamps. Like this knife here is so tiny, one clamp will do. You can take this clamp off if you want. You can put the, let's turn it this way so you can see better. You can put the clamp here or here. There's a hole right through there to put the screw through. So you can use 2 clamps or you can use 1 clamp, and you can have 1 clamp on the inside, 1 clamp on the outside, or both on the outside or both on the inside. Whichever way it works to get your main cutting surface, the edge of the blade that you're cutting, as close to the middle as possible. Certain knives, you just can't clamp them in certain spots, and so you need to move these around. Now, that being said, it can be a little tricky to move these because how do you get to the spot to screw it in? Well, on this side, this very last one, you can reach into the end with a screwdriver, and depending on which kit you get, you'll have a screwdriver that comes with it, and you'll be able to get at it and screw that in. But how do you get to that middle one? You can't right there, so you have to turn the clamp, and you might have to go through here in order to tighten or loosen it. Let me see, do I have it right there? There it is. So I can tighten and loosen it right here to move it back and forth. Or I can go and do it at the top. Well, that one's not right at the right top spot, but you can do it through the bottom here. You can do it through the side. You just have to turn it whichever way to get the access. Now, I found that that's not really a big deal because, to be honest, I don't move these clamps very often at all. It's just if I'm going from, a very tiny knife over to a huge knife, I'll move them, but it's not that frequent. Now, if you're like me, most of your knives are going to be between 2.5 to 4 inches of blade. And you'll probably have one setup that you're going to use 95% of the time. Not a big deal that you have to change those around. So how do you get the angle on this? Well, you can use the method that's recommended in the book, in the manual, without a digital finder to just match. But if you want to create a good angle and measure it, I showed you how to do that. And you can adjust it in several different places. This here is one of the adjustment areas, and you can change the angle of the knife. And it's got diagrams down here of different types of knives, the list shown on the side here. It's hard to get a good picture of that with a camera, at least with my cameras, but you can change the angle doing that kind of adjustment. And when you have the angle you want, you just lock it down with that with a nice little thumb tightness. You've got another way to change the angle, and that's with this here. It moves this up and down. Make sure that's on the screen. Now, this is also a thickness compensator. If you know the thicknesses of your stones and you're using different thicknesses of your stones on your sharpening session, what I would do is I'd mark on the side of the stone with a permanent marker what the thickness is, or on a stone like this, I'd write it down on the back. So if you go from a 3mm thick stone to a 6mm thick stone, on here, if it's thicker, you go down and you go down, whatever the number of clicks is of the thickness. It's 2 clicks per millimeter, so it's a 0.5 millimeter step at a time. So if you're changing 3mm, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now the angle at the edge will be the same as it was. You don't have to pull this back out and remeasure it. And especially if you don't have one of these, if you've got the main base unit, then you really need something like this to compensate for the thickness of the stone. And of course, this also, you can use this to help you dial into the angle that you want if you are using one of these. So there's those two parts that move to change the angles. But if you've got the 360, like I said, you'll also have this, and that will also change your angle as well. So you've got, if you got the 360, you've got 3 different ways to change the angle. That's a good thing. Now, we've covered most of the basis. I didn't cover showing you how to change to turn this. You just put your thumb on this wheel and you pull up on this lever, and that makes it loose and free to turn. Of course, if you've got a bigger knife, you might not be able to turn it down because it'll hit on the table. But that's not a big deal because you can always go from one position, turn it over. Now, what size knives can you do and what angles can you have? Well, you can do anything from 8 degrees to 27 degrees sharpening with the base unit, with the standard unit, and even more if you've got the 360 and you've got this. You cut even a greater range of angles. That's a lot of range. Most knives, are between, 16 and 22, 24 at the most. If you've got a cleaver or a hatchet or something, that's probably not going to work on here unless it's a smaller cleaver. But some knives, or bigger hatchet kind of knives and cleavers, stuff like that, that'll be a greater angle. And filleting knives and some kitchen knives will have a smaller angle. But that's usually 12 degrees or higher. So this thing can go to 8. And, as high as you want, as far high as you would want on a knife. So that's a very good range. Highly precision-made aluminum parts here make the system light. The base here is steel, so that gives it enough weight to be quite stable. Now, while you're sharpening, let me just give you an example here. You might be sharpening and the whole unit will move a little bit, like wiggle up and down. That's no problem because everything's contained here. It won't be changing anything at the blade. So you don't have to be concerned about that. It'll just be moving around. One option is maybe you can clamp this on to a table with a C-clamp, or you can get a bigger base to put this on and maybe drill a hole through here and screw it down on it so it doesn't move. But if you're going to do all those kinds of things, you probably want a bigger sharpening system like the K03 by TSPROF or something else. The best thing about this unit is it is small. You take the rod out, you undo this thumb screw, and that breaks down to really small, super easily. Let's take this knife out so it's out of the way. This is a 2mm hex screwdriver. Depending on which kit you get, you might get the screwdriver with it, as well as the screwdriver for adjusting, these little screws. That's an even smaller screwdriver for adjusting this. And this you adjust for the length of the stone that you have. Well, I'll just say it now since I'm here anyways. The length of the stone that you can use is 6 inches, which is 15.5 centimeters, or anything shorter. And of course, it'll handle stones that are wider as well, quite well. But this thing's nice and small and compact and light. This folds over out of the way for storage. And Look how small that is. It's tiny. It's, smaller than my hand. It's light, compact, easy to move around to places. If you are a fairly mobile person who likes sharpening, this might be your choice. If you're living in a place with a small space, so many people are getting tiny houses these days. Convenience, that's what this is about. Price is not bad. Like $200 for the base unit, just a simple fixed blade can easily cost over $200. If you like to have nice knives, why would you buy a cheap, semi-functional sharpening system? It just doesn't make sense. If you like collecting knives, even if you're like me, and that's a rarity, I mostly have knives like this, $20 knives, US dollar knives, $30, $40, $50 knives, like the Best Techs and stuff, they're $50 to start with and higher. Even if you like budget knives, I think it still makes sense to get a good, proper, higher end sharpening system, because this thing will be good for 99% of your knives, and it will last, as long as your knives last. So you'll be able to sharpen just about everything with this sharpener. And, it makes sense to me to buy a very good sharpener. Buy the best one you can afford. I give you that advice always. I don't always tell people to buy the best knife you can afford, because there's a lot of good knives that are budget knives. But the budget sharpening systems tend to be budget sharpening systems, not only in price, but in quality as well. Can you get them to work okay? Sure you can. But can you get them to work wonderfully? No, you can't. But this thing can work wonderfully. Now, this is not for every knife. It's not for like machetes. It doesn't have attachments, at least not yet, for scissors or stuff like that. If you're a knife collector who has a wide range of knives, including a lot of knives that are over 7 inches, or even just a few knives that are over 7 inches, you might want to go up and get the K03 instead of the Blitz. But if you are basically a folding knife collector and, you've got fixed blades that are, 6-inch blades, 7-inch blades even, maybe even 7.5-inch blades, you can sharpen those on here. But if you've got larger ones, you might want to get a bigger system. And where can you buy these? Well, you can buy them directly from TSPROF. I like to, if you're in North America, I would recommend buying them from Gritomatic. You can get all kinds of different stones from Gritomatic as well, and their kits have different stones as well, options that you can put on there. I really like the Venev stones. That's another Russian company that makes really good diamond stones. They've got this size stone that fits in here. I've got longer stones that I use with my K03, but the Venev stones are really good. There's other diamond stones as well. If you've got more than 10 knives, I would recommend that you get diamond stones. You're going to save time sharpening, and you're going to save money on stones as well in the long run, because these last a whole lot longer. But I always say get the best stones you can afford, just like you get the best sharpening system that you can afford. And this is, I'm 100% convinced, this is the best small sharpening system on the market today. Will it change tomorrow? I don't know. But today, this is the best. I highly recommend it. Now, if you want how-to videos, TSPROF has some. They've got them on their website. If you go and watch those and you still have questions on how to use this thing, go ahead and send me a comment or send me an email at canadiancuttingedge@gmail.com, and I'll make a video about how to use it. Because like with the K03 system, K02 system, I think I made 7 different videos on it. And I'm very happy to help you out and make more videos for them, because I want you to be informed so you can make the most informed, the best decision for yourself. So thanks for watching my little review video that isn't that terribly little. And remember, friends, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb. Bye for now.